Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for another attack on Sunday that killed 30 people. Now, authorities say the group detonated a car bomb outside of a busy junction in the city of Baidoa, Somalia. A suicide bomber then detonated a secondary blast in a busy restaurant where people were watching the English Premier League match between Manchester United and Arsenal. Now, Elliot, this is the fourth attack by Al-Shabaab in Somalia this year. And honestly, the second one this week. They had another attack, a car bomb detonated near a park and a hotel in Mogadishu, which is about 152 miles from this area. But it's, we're seeing an escalation in the attacks that are happening in this area as Al-Shabaab is really trying to topple the government in Somalia.
Right. There's elections coming up later on in the year, and they're clearly seeking to increase their activity and destabilize or derail that election process. They're also looking this type of, as you say, a much more sustained campaign seeking to undermine public confidence that perhaps stability is to be restored to the region. And also, it's clearly an attack on the Western-based, the Western-based government, which they see as weak.
Yes. And what's happening is in this area where the restaurant bomb and the car bomb went off, there is a police station, and Al-Shabaab's media wing has reached out to reporters and said, we target government officials and forces. And so anyone else who happens to be impacted in that area is fair game. We're really less concerned about collateral damage in this instance because they are really specifically targeting this, but also giving a much, instilling fear in this way by, saying anyone who's anywhere near this sort of Western-backed regime is subject to these heinous acts of violence.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, as I said, it's an exercise in seeking to undermine the efforts of, there's a 22,000 strong peacekeeping force in Somalia, the AMISOM, and again, it was felt and hoped that they were making significant steps and significant strides in terms of restoring stability to this region. And this increase in violence, and as you said, this is the second in a week. We remember, obviously, very clearly the Westgate massacre. We remember a number of Garissa as well. There's a number of other instances that have happened, and this is seemingly just another step in this increased strategy, determination to derail election process and just to further destabilize. This is a country that's often referred to as a failed state,
right,
and clearly something that the United Nations and the West are seeking to shore it up and stabilize it. And again, this instability is just being perpetrated and continued assault on the stability is highly troubling.
And another interesting thing to point out here is that Al-Shabaab has also made several mentions to the Islamic State, saying stay out of the area because their particular brand of extremism is different from Al-Shabaab's in the sense that ISIS and ISIL will go and they'll target civilians and they'll target, concerts like we saw in Paris or gatherings like we saw in San Bernardino. But with Al-Shabaab, they're really focused on toppling government officials and the civilians that happen to be around at the time. So it's, it's the inner workings of a sort of a terrorist feud in a way, trying to regain control of this area, one in a very, very targeted way that is looking to expand collateral damage as much as possible, and the other just sort of piecemeal going after, almost it seems like media press in this way.
Right. They're both derived from Salafi jihadist principles and philosophy, so there's similarity there. The Al-Shabaab is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda, so there is that kind of the sort of commonality there. But it's interesting, yes, you're right, to the extent to which they eschew the tactics, or seemingly eschew the tactics and the approach of ISIS, and there is something of a turf war that's going on, or potentially turf war that could ensue, particularly as we see, ISIS become degraded in Syria, or ostensibly in Syria, and then we're hearing reports that it's ever increasingly popular and strong in Libya.
Right.
So and it comes back to this, and it brings you back to this concept that you cannot destroy an idea in that way, and simply carpet bombing is actually only going to be only entrenches the jihadist and that philosophy even more, because it becomes a recruiting tool, and the only way you can destroy and degrade the idea and the concept is through education and ideas yourself, rather than seemingly just trying to, this endless cycle of violence.
30 dead and another 40 injured as Al-Shabaab continues their reign of terror in Somalia with a fourth attack this year.